So I'd be open to working with the AR Plus or anyone who could be like our consultant for this program, so that when we present it to the board, they can see that we have a jewel in the making.
So, so there's the collab that Ben and I are doing. There was this chapter, and then finally there's this work that we're doing at the Chicago School in Action Research. I've written a memo for our provost to send along with the donation letter to list what's been accomplished in the last year with AR Plus, return on investment, if you will. And I was actually shocked by how much we have contributed to the Chicago School.
Okay, no. I was writing here so I can organize my thoughts about it. So I think reality demands will present themselves as we work forward from AR perspective. For example, in Pueblo Crítico, that's the organization I belong to, we create board games and creative, colorful tools to work with concepts and inspire processes. And if I were to cook, for example, parting from the first chapter, a lot of ideas do come to mind when I think about introducing the strategy that is presented there, and creating, I don't know, how's the word in English, the tools that use architects to present, we call them maquetas. I don't know how is it in
portfolio?
No, because it's the structure. It's okay, right, the model.
The models.
If I'm about to present the idea of thinking the healthcare system through the participants and patients' lens, for example, I would present models like that so that people can interact with artifacts to go through the experience and facilitate some narratives, for example. So if I'm thinking about a step ahead regarding that kind of work and inspiration we can build with the first chapter as a pretext, I would definitely, for example, need funds for materials and creating that kind of artifacts, aside from the ones I'm able to create from recycling and reuse of other products. So I think that when we are there, after concluding the translation, the reality will demand them to implement that ideas. But right now, I cannot anticipate any more than that, since that is the step we are currently.
So I mean, I can share a couple of thoughts. I mean, the first, I'm hearing us talk a lot about this cross-pollination, and it's wonderful to hear very specific examples of how that's happening. So a question for me is, can that be facilitated further? And if so, what resources can we put to that? You know, is a bit more face-to-face time to build those relationships that can then lead to the other projects, such as some of the ones that Martin was talking about, or that indeed Camille was sharing. The other thing I was thinking about was in relation to what Camille shared, and this, we talked about this in another conversation, but it's the cookbooking as a process now, after hearing Camille talk about it, came to life in my mind, right? So what are those other opportunities that we can, you know, with funding, we could catalyze, right? So that, you know, my sort of ideological side would say, you know, we muddle through, it's relational, things emerge, and, you know, and I think that's all very true. But I think funding can be a great catalyst of where those things are starting to emerge, of how we could, you know, what might be some of the southern or other partners that we're working with who want to take the recipe and make it their own, right? And how do we accompany that, and then document that and then share that. So, you know, there's a lot that will happen naturally. With Hillary, your your facilitation and the role that you play that is so central. But I think all those things can be enhanced with funding. So, it sounds to me like it, being a bit more pragmatic, I think it is probably a good thing to think about putting those ideas into proposals and thinking about how we enhance, facilitate, strengthen what will happen naturally.
To some suggestions can sort of be, I don't know, sort of a resistance. And then how valuable it is to be able to push past that resistance, to really explore it, both for myself and for, I think, what we're trying to do broadly.
I love your honesty, Steve. If the whole world could awaken to how we're basically a big walking no, it would. If I may, then I'll piggyback just to move us on. The idea of role play came from the work with Catherine in another collab in MICA, which Catherine, I thought, gave a nice review of over email. So I won't go into that, except to say that this sense of bringing something beyond just the verbal, bringing more essential, experiential information into our conversations feels really important. And so MICA stands for Mindfulness Integrating Creativity for Activists. And like, what is that balance between being centered, being grounded in internal authority, and always looking for external funding, external structure, right? There's this important balance between those two things. And
I want to add that if Steve could consider, and anybody else consider who's got knowledge about this, how can action research as a practice and how can AR Plus best assist with the development of reorganizing the world, so to speak, to achieve the sustainable development goals? That's certainly something that is very important to me personally. It's a big task. I greatly admire the UN and everybody involved for trying to take it on. And if there is energy and force sufficient to make that happen, I can see how both the practice of AR and maybe AR Plus would be of great assistance in helping people with progress on that. So I'd like to know what you, knowing about it, whereas I don't at this point, and didn't see the opportunities to be. Thank you.